Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Survivor Stockwatch podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I am here today to talk to you about Survivor 42. And I just got to say,
I'm so happy I'm here.
Survivor is back. We're happy. Everyone's happy. And we're ready to talk about these players and rate them, rank them, talk about how well we think they're doing and what we thought of the episode. I thought it was a very fun premiere. So I have with me to talk about it Grace. How you doing, Grace?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be chatting about Survivor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, it can be such a dramatic shift to go from Big Brother to Survivor, where it's like Big Brother, Big Brother is often a show. Like the feeds are great, but the show sometimes can feel like you're sort of cracking a coconut to get to the coconut inside the good bits.
Yeah. Like when I have to explain to someone, like I'm a big fan of reality TV, and then if I just sit them down and I'm like, here, come watch an episode of Big Brother with me. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, this isn't like exactly, it's not perfect representation of actually what I want you to watch. But I feel like I could like sit someone next to me in Survivor and they'll be like, oh, I should have kept watching this. For sure. It's like, it is like the serious, dramatic shift in tone. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, you get into Survivor and it's just like right out of the gate, I was just like, this is amazing. This is so much fun.
It's an adventure. Yeah.
And what a first challenge as well. So if you are a listener to the Survivor Stockwatch or the Survivor Legacy Watch that I did for season 40, in the past, these have gone, like 3 hours because we do a detailed recap of the episode and then we get into the ratings and such. So experimenting with things. The Big Brother season is running during Survivor for the first time since I started doing Survivor coverage. And so what we're going to do this season, or at least this is the idea so far, is that less recap, more ratings. We'll just kind of talk about some highlights from the episode that we thought were either good or relevant. And then we'll get straight into talking about the players and trying to figure out how well we think they're doing. A lot of them we didn't see too much from, obviously, here just in the premiere, but in some ways, that's the fun of it for the Survivor Stockwatch. So that's what we'll be doing here tonight. And I loved the opening challenge. I love watching people run. I don't know what it is.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. Poor Dan, off the bat. That was rough. Yeah. This opening challenge, I thought having it's a little jarring to be like, okay, now run back to the, way back in the forest. And then, okay, suddenly you're going to stop. And there's actually nothing to do. And it's this decision. They love throwing the dilemma at some players early on, right? In some of these seasons. I thought it was really fun. I thought it worked really well. I think the stuff that they are sticking with from what we've seen last season, where they like these twists that like are really cross tribal. And I thought this one was like a really good way of doing that. So yeah.
Yes. Jeff also is going to tell us that it's so funny that like he cues this up because I guess they were worried about like the cognitive dissonance that people would experience of like, why don't they know this? We all watched it last season.
Right.
Why are they doing the same twist? But so Jeff has to cue it up. Like they haven't seen Survivor 41, drop the 4, keep the 1. They've only seen Survivor 40, drop the 4, keep the 0. And so we get to do the same fun things like
potatoes have skin. I have skin. Am I a potato?
Who's a potato?
Who's a potato?
Like, come on, you got this from Celebrity Big Brother. All right, I get it.
That's right. I think the funniest is like when he's like, we're gonna do all the same twists, except some of them we're gonna do a little differently because we didn't really like them.
Yeah.
like, isn't the idea of a science experiment is typically you run the same experiment over and over again, to see if you get different results. He's like, no, we're gonna do this the way we're gonna do the science. We're gonna change the science experiment and then see if we get different results. Like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna get different results, Jeff.
Yeah.
But
there's a great moment at the start of the episode that I think is kind of representative of how Jeff sometimes interacts with the fan base, and it's how Jeff interacts with Zach. The roles are a little bit reversed, though.
I think we're about to find out, Jeff. What does that mean?
I don't know. I was trying, man. It sounded cool. I think it was the delivery that I kind of like miffed it on.
Just picture Jeff as Zach.
Yeah, it's true.
Talking about all his new twists. Yeah. And the audience being like, what are you talking about? I don't know. It sounded cool. It's just, like I said, the like how it worked out just didn't work.
Yeah, it's like he's like not gonna get away with like generic answer on the mat. Just like tell me actually more. Explain that more to me. Yeah, I noticed that Jeff decided that, or they decided, and I've really kept away. I've shied away from some most preseason stuff. But so apparently in the commercials, the monster is back. And in episode 1, Jeff tells us the monster is back. Do you think
a horror monster?
My instinct is like, oh, they're doing the monster thing again. What if they actually came up with it in season 42 and they're like, okay, we got to figure out how to work that into season 41. The backtrack. I really like this monster thing. If we could work that, because like it just totally dies off for the rest of the season, you know, last year. But yeah.
Well, I agree though. The in the challenge, I love watching people run. So when I saw the first part, I was like, this is great. Daniel ends up dislocating his shoulder trying to run to get back. Then the next group goes out and it just says, wait for everyone else to get here. I'm like, what did Daniel just dislocate his shoulder for?
Yeah, poor Daniel watching the episode tonight was like, wow, I really wish I got leg number 2.
Yeah.
You know? Unfortunately, my arm number 1 is dislocated from the shoulder.
Yeah, I loved this though. My favorite part about this is that they're like, okay, so you can all agree to have an advantage. I thought that was very fun.
Yeah.
And I loved that they were all game to do it as well. I love this cast seems to be very willing to take risks. I'm into that. My favorite part though is that they included mud and blood.
And blood. I really thought, you know, I think it is like an interesting choice to like give them blood. They actually doesn't seem like they actually have to use if they don't. So like they could have been smart enough to be like, no, don't put the blood on. Why would we put the blood on? Don't do that. But they're like, no, I guess it's here. We have to use it. And then to come back and have to explain it. And like, I have so much blood on. You are bleeding so much. Like, did they not notice when they got back and he like washes everything? It's like, oh, you have no cuts. There's no.
Right. That was my very first thought. It's like, how are you going to explain where this blood came from? And Lydia's like, there's so much blood.
So much blood.
Are you okay?
Did you have to like slaughter a pig back there? Like what happened? And then army crawl through it. I don't know. Yeah.
I like this from High.
I've been on such a strict skincare routine.
This is good. It's mud.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, and blood.
He smears all the blood all over his chest. I was like, what are you doing?
Too
much.
much.
I think you're gonna bleed out.
Too much blood. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's a lot of blood.
Yeah. And Jonathan is just a beast in these challenges as well. I was saying in the draft that like overall this is not a super physical cast. There are a couple of people that are like pretty fit, but Jonathan really stands out in terms of just like, whoa, like he would stand out on a like very physical cast that was already a very physical, but this is already not much of a physical cast. He stands out even more.
It definitely, there's 2 moments in the episode. One is like who they picked to be their runners. I think are like, when you see like, this is who they set up, they do not seem like the most like stereotypical, like this is our like athlete to get us on like the right foot. And then also when they're deciding between, at camp, whether to do the savvy or the sweat, what is it called? I don't remember what the twist is called,
savvy or sweat.
And it's like Mike is like, well, I'm gonna have to do this. Like there's no other there's not even a debate, you know. And I feel like that's like actually the case on most of the tribes. Just like kind of one guy who probably they would pick, and nobody else is like these typical like bodybuilding super athletic guys. Yeah,
Mike, who is 58 years old, is like, it would have to be me. Like that's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. Yeah.
So
Well, I think it proves the point that like last season they did that, and I think did everybody went with Sweat,
with
right?
Sweat, but
And I
they
know
let
it's a
two
little
people
bit.
do it.
They did let two people do it, but
Yeah.
I did think it's a interesting, in terms of like the mindset of these two different casts.
Mhm.
It is, to Jeff's point, I kind of wish would they, if they were allowed to pick two people, would they pick two people, or is this cast much more like intellectually minded to the point where let's all pick savvy, So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, a couple of other highlights from the episode. I really enjoyed this bit when they, I believe it was the Ika tribe, was they were getting to work and they were just humming as they worked. I think they started to get it by the end.
Sounds so much more culty when you like.
That's I've been using the Squid Game music for Melissa's theme. Maybe we can combine that with
Am I wrong? It's very culty, I think. Yeah.
I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
So in response to that, Rox is gonna say,
let's get crack-a-lackin'. It was like herding cats.
Stuff to herd cats, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't have any cats, but I hear it's stuff. Yeah, rough ep. We'll get to Roxroy later, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Roxroy taking charge, but didn't seem to come back and bite him like it sometimes does.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also got some good Drea content. She gets the initial advantage, and she's like, "Oh, more advantages? I'm down." We also got a very interesting sound clip from Drea.
That's when I realized I need to see what's in my bra.
I mean,
Sometimes you just got to see what's in there.
you gotta check. Yeah, good to always just double check.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
I really liked that the Drea was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's just get all the advantages.
I think that I think if you watch back the clip 2 of like in the challenge, I think Kai would have been pushing, but I think Dre is the first person to be like, come on, we're here to play. Like, aren't we supposed to take risks? Come on. Like, like points out it's a shorter game, like let's go. And I think she is the driving force behind them ultimately, the three of them coming together to take the advantage. So I think Drea, not the best episode, I think, for Drea, but at the same time, I think that she set herself up pretty decently moving forward.
Yeah, what do we think about this advantage? It's the something amulet, right?
Yeah, the amulet. Yeah,
the
but
amulet
actually, it's a key. Okay, yeah,
Samarkand or something. It's so I'm still not entirely clear on how it works. That it's either that that they all three of them have to come together and use it like their Captain Planet in order for it to be one extra vote, or if it's just like any one of them can use their thing as an extra vote while all three exist, and then once one of them's gone, then it becomes a steal a vote, and then finally an idle. Or
yeah, I assume they all had to be together. And so
that was my initial thought, but I think it actually makes a little more sense if they can play it individually, and then as each one gets played, it gets more valuable, or you can just vote them out to make it more valuable. But I think again, my first instinct was that they all had to be together, so I'm assuming that's how it works. But we'll see. I'm sure they'll explain it to us once it becomes relevant.
Bet that my first is like, yours sounds more fun, so I bet it's the other one.
Right? Yeah.
I like the idea that any of them could play it at any time. Yeah, but yeah, if that, like, to me defeats a little bit of the purpose of like they all have to be they're all to be active in the game, right? The idea is that like I always felt like it's like what I liked about it is that there is this like, again, this like cross tribal thing where you could choose. I feel like I don't know if this came as a result of Shannon Ricard's relationship last season, but I feel like they had such an interesting dynamic about advantages of like
Mhm.
who's going to hold it, do we trust each other, and it feels like they've tried to like inorganically get a moment like that where these two people are going to be like, yeah, we could use our advantage together, or I could just vote you out and then I can use mine all on my own, you know. So I feel like the seeds are there for this to be interesting. I'm not sure I totally understand it yet, so I don't know if I can cast judgment on the amulet.
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
like the idea of like I kind of need to use this as an extra vote, but if I use it as an extra vote, I'm giving a more powerful advantage to the other two. Like I can if I use this, then
Right.
I'm giving up what is potentially more powerful to them. And at the same time, like maybe I need to use this to de-incentivize them from taking me out of the game so that theirs becomes more powerful. Because if I hold on to it, they might want to take me out.
Right.
So I like that idea, but I think I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning more toward it. They probably have to use it all together, which is also a little weird. Like,
That's
it's
so
kind
much
of
less powerful.
it's
We have
assuming that
one
they all
vote.
make it to the merge in the first place,
Yes.
or a swap. But even then, like, what are the odds that all three of them get swapped in the same tribe? And then even if all three of them make it to the merge together, they would need to all come together and say, okay, well, all three of us are using this as an extra vote, and they have to decide collectively, I assume, what that vote goes toward.
Yeah, 'cause it
Like,
can't be 3 extra votes. That's too
it's
much, you know?
basically never going to be used as an extra vote is the result of that sort of method, right? Like
Yes.
either one of them gets picked off before the merge, or at least one of them is not going to agree to use it as an extra vote, so they'll get voted out by the other two or by whatever. Like this is I would be very surprised if three people need to come together to use it as an extra vote, that it will ever be used as an extra vote if
And if
that's
we're
the case.
it's like part of what I love about it is that they're all from different tribes, and also what I see inevitably failing about them being able to come together is that they're all
Yeah.
from different tribes, right? Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll
Well,
see.
luckily we've got the smarts,
Now comes the smarts.
so we'll be able to figure out eventually. Um,
Yeah.
what we're gonna see by the end of the episode is that our ripped guy Zach
We're both, you know, ripped.
is gonna be voted out, which I thought was a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
For if this kid loves Survivor, come on, is essentially the first person voted out. That's kind of a bummer, especially when yeah, we're sitting right there. But it's what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I was bummed. I really liked Zach. I mean, I think he had a very strong first boot episode. He has the
Yeah.
moment on the mat. I think the ripped comment is really fun. It looked like he was making some inroads, and it all just kind of like falls apart on him. But yeah, I was sad to see him be voted out. But I mean, I loved his final words. He's saying like, if I get voted out Survivor first, or I never get to play Survivor, vote me out first. So yeah, good episode for Zach, even though he got voted out. Yeah.
Yeah. Another devastating portion of the episode is that we also lost Jackson. Now, we did hear Jackson's story about how he originally auditioned as a girl and he transitioned after that. And he had this whole story about how his mother got sick and he took care of her with his father and they ended up bonding. And it was extremely emotional. And like, I was like, all right, so I don't care how well Jackson does on this season. I just hope he lasts a long time. I love this guy.
Yeah.
And then Jeff comes in the boat, and I'm like, what are you doing, Jeff?
What is this? Yeah.
What are you doing, Jeff? This is heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, just first of all, I mean, the whole Jackson story, I mean, as a trans person, it's like incredibly beautiful, moving story about how, he takes care of his mother, who gets to see him for who he is, while also getting to develop a relationship with his father that he never had. It's like so beautiful and so touching. And then, yeah, they set us up for a blindside. So yeah, I know that there'll probably be more to come about like what happened here, what the situation. It's a very odd situation where like they did find out before filming, but like too short notice apparently to be able, and so they kind of just were like, well, let's just see what happened and we can make a decision later. It's one of the most unique things I've ever seen on Survivor, I have to say.
Yeah, it's weird that like nothing like this has happened before. I guess maybe similar things have happened before, but people were a little less open about discussing them. But yeah, and you know, like I wasn't even sure like where it was going at first.
Me either.
I was like, what is like, did he break a rule? Like,
That's certainly where my head went to first.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, you didn't tell us about something. I was like, oh no, like what is
Yeah.
happening? But you know, ultimately, just for medical reasons, it seems he was not able to. And like my first thought as well was just like, man, I hope he can come back. Like, I hope he gets
Yeah.
another chance at this. But like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I saw some stuff floating around online. There's this discussions happening about like, does it feel so? One thing I just want to say off the bat, we do not really know the medical. I am the medical stuff. I'm not a doctor.
I have no
you know,
idea what lithium even
yeah.
know
So
is really.
you know, other than that, the fact that like it, you know, so Jackson doesn't tell them before that he's like, he thought he'd be able to wean himself off of it, is seemingly what he had said. He wasn't really able to do that. So he stops taking it because he's probably worried that he will not get on the show, and disclose it right before. And so they're in this pickle of like, what do we do? And I have such conflicting feelings. There's a part of me that like, I think this is like my natural distrust of Survivor production in some ways, being like, boy, does that feel like, I'm like in my head, does that feel exploitative? Like, does it feel like, well, if we put him on for like 2 days, he can tell his story. We'll get this great segment, and then we'll pull him from the game. And you know, again, I don't know the medical stuff. So whether they were like really seeing like, is there a world in which like we can like figure this out by like day 3? Is there a world which like we've solved the medical thing and Jackson can be on the show? Well, at the same time, like the story is powerful. It's really powerful. I think about like my parents, who also did not have a great reaction to me coming out. And it took time. It took like time. Like I always tell this thing of like, I like hid being trans for myself for so long, then like accepted that I was trans, and then took all the time I needed to eventually tell everybody else. And then the first day I told my parents, the first explanation they ever have that I'm trans, I was like sort of expecting them to be at the same place I was, the same emotional place I was. And they just weren't ready for that, right? It's the first, you know, it's like the first day I figured out I was trans, I like told myself, I was like, you're not trans. No, you're not. Like, you know, and so it took time for my parents to get to the place where they're very accepting of me now. I have a great relationship with my parents, and so that story is like so important that Jackson told in the show. Not everybody is as lucky to like eventually get a relationship with like their parents, so that's like there's a bit of privilege there, but like it's really powerful to see like you can still love your trans child. I think for parents, I think about like my parents are big Survivor watchers. They watch every week. You know, if like my parents had have watched this episode before I came out, does that like make me coming out to them somewhat easier? Not entirely easier, but somewhat easier. And so I keep going back and forth feeling like if they knew they were going to take Jackson out, then it feels a little bit exploitive. And at the same time, it's so important that that story got to be on TV. And part of the problem is that like this was a season where they're not having it feels like they don't have backups, right? They show up and they don't have backups. But also, what are the odds that the backup is a trans person, right? And so probably not very likely, right? And so it's a bit of an issue of like, yeah, when you rely on like one, you know, so few trans people to be represented on your show, and then you have to remove that person, you're like you lose all the trans representation, right? Which I'm not saying that we need a bunch of trans people on the show. We're a small population, but it is just like, you know, the more representation, the better in my mind. So very complicated feelings with this whole Jackson. I'm very sad ultimately that Jackson will not be on the rest of the season. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the optimistic view is that that like they once they found out were like, oh crap, like we really wanted Jackson on, you know, hopefully maybe we can figure something out. Like if he was saying that he was weaning himself off, like maybe it'll work out. And then I think you do see like a quick scene. It did stand out to me right before we see Jeff, that I think it might have been Marianne was like, you've been dizzy for 10 hours. Like, so if that might have been the point where they were like, okay, this is not working. You know, we were hoping it would, but it doesn't seem like it is. But you know, ultimately, I think you're also right to be like a little distrustful of Survivor production as well. So
if it comes that, you know, Jackson does an interview tomorrow and it's like they, you know, treated me well, you know, then great. I'm very happy and, you know, move on. It's just like, you know, for some of we just watched the show. My parents just watched the show. You know, they're not like reading everything else. So hopefully it's all on the up and up. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, that was our episode. I thought it was very good overall, even though it was kind of a bummer at times.
It's so sad. I don't know why Survivor's trying to
Yeah.
make me cry so much. I
That's
don't
right.
understand. Daniel, he just gets older and later. He's just like, yeah, I had leukemia as a kid, and now I'm here, to make sure that like other kids who like are in the hospital know that like there's a future for them outside the hospital. It's like
Oh,
right
man.
after the Jacksons.
I know. Yeah.
It's brutal. No,
It really was. Yeah. It was hit after hit there. But all right, let's talk about the individual players here. Let's run through. If you are watching the video version of this podcast, I'm going to bring up the cast photos here. I've been doing this for Big Brother Canada as well. Now, unfortunately, they don't all fit nicely on the screen, no matter what I do with the pictures. But that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
we'll scroll to which one we need as we go. We're gonna go tribe by tribe, and then kind of talk about them in order of how well we think they're doing. Give them a bit of a number rating, and we'll see where we go from there. Unfortunately, and I do apologize. Building and maintaining a website, it's very difficult. So trying to simultaneously run Survivor and Big Brother Stockwatches at the same time, a little bit out of our depth on that one at the moment. So we're still working on the Survivor game version, but for now we're just podcasting about it. But stay tuned. Someday. But let's first talk about the Ika tribe that I really want to call Ika.
Yeah.
For Big Brother Canada reasons. But let's talk about the Ika tribe first. And I think we can go from the bottom up here because I think the bottom is very easy. Of course, the person that was voted out, Zach, I think is probably at the bottom of the list on this tribe as the person that was voted out. We didn't really get to see much from the episode in general of really anybody's strategic game. So again, take this with a huge grain of salt. I would pay more attention to just like the rankings rather than the ratings. We're really just rating for the sake of a potential game someday.
That's right.
But so a lot of this is going to be guesswork here on the first one. And again, the ratings will be 1 is the worst that they could play, 10 being the best that they could play. I try to look at sort of short-term safety, long-term sort of promise, and how well they did in this particular episode. So Zach is probably at the bottom here. First person voted out, even though Jeff did say second person voted out, which is
big
really
controversy
messy.
about the grenade.
Yeah, the grenade is it's a hot potato.
Potatoes have skin. I have skin. Am I a potato?
The grenade being passed back and forth. I really, for a second there, was like, man, if Jackson doesn't count as the grenade, Puya is in big trouble again with Tori and Rocks. Like, this is this would be. I was like, please, like, we can't do this to Puya again.
It'd be a good bit though for Puya, just constantly be the grenade guy. I mean, pretty fun.
I mean, I think it would be fun. I don't know if Puya does.
Puya thinks it's fun.
But yes, Zach here. I mean, I don't think that Zach did anything like super wrong. I think the biggest mistake that we're going to point to was he told Tori that she was being talked about. Probably shouldn't have done that. It allowed Tori to make a bold play, which is just confront the entire tribe about it. And it seems as though, even though we didn't see it take place, that she really ratted him out right after. And that did not help his cause.
I don't really know what Zach did wrong here, other than sort of being the odd person out. Like, it kind of seemed like he might have
too ripped.
Yeah, it seems like he might have had Romeo maybe relied on that too much. There's a part where they talk about this tribe being made up of like duos, and yet when it comes down to it, like Romeo votes out Zach here. So it feels like he just like kind of didn't have anybody that, and perhaps the person he trusted the most did not really have his back, right?
Yeah, well, it seemed like initially, and I don't know if this is a coincidence, but most of this tribe is going to be here on the bottom row of the photos. That we're looking at.
Yeah.
But it seemed like initially this tribe was separated by age. That they were like the young kids and the older ones. But then, Swati seemed to end up bonding with the older people a little more. Romeo and Zach ended up bonding a bit, and it seemed like Tori is kind of the one left out of all of that. But for whatever reason, again, Tori is able to get her way back in. They were debating between Tori and Zach, and ultimately go with Zach for strength reasons, right? And given the immunity challenge was incredibly physical, I think that hurt a lot as well. If that challenge had been different and they hadn't been so out muscled, then maybe they're looking at Zach and Tori in a different light, and maybe they are looking more at Tori. But I mean, when the challenge is like that, and you're like, we got 6 people, I think it's even an even tougher sell for Zach.
Well, but who did they sit out of that? They sat somebody out of that challenge, right? And I can't. Is it Swati? Did they sit out Swati?
I honestly don't even know. Yeah,
that challenge felt very, very hard, and I do wonder how much that challenge is even just a smidge easier if you have 6 people.
Right. Yeah, I think it's designed to have 6 people, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do wonder there, but also whoever they set out, they're still banking on that person being. Is it not Swati? Because Swati is the one who does the puzzle. I don't even know who set out of the challenge. I don't know.
I honestly don't
remember.
Romeo.
He's like, I'll sit out. I'll sit out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
And I mean, Romeo is sort of entrenched, and it's because I think it's like the alliance is, or the group is, Romeo, Rox, Swati, and Andrea, I would imagine. So they're kind of deciding between Tori and Zach, and between the two of them, Tori just seems a lot stronger. And so that seems to be the story they're telling, or at least that's the impression I got. So
no, I agree. I also do wonder how much there is like the fear of the super fan, like Zach. I don't know how much he was out there saying he's but he certainly gives off the vibe of being a super fan. And he tells us afterwards, he's a huge Survivor fan, and so whether there's just this little inkling of like, maybe like if Tori's a little bit stronger and she does not seem to be as big of a fan, she's kind of she put a target on her own, but really they think she's looking for an idol. Perhaps the safer bet is to keep Tori around and get rid of Zach, who, while maybe doesn't have much power now, could have power later, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for what it's worth, I think they made a mistake. I mean,
yeah,
I think Tori is the right call here. I mean, yeah, she's stronger in competitions probably, but you've only really played like 2. You don't really know. And is there a huge difference in like strength output between 2 people? Like if you're all in a group, no. If they're individual, like maybe. But still, it's like in terms of trustworthiness, I feel like Zach is going to be a lot more with them than Tori is.
I think especially for Romeo,
is more dangerous. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like who else does Zach have? Feels like maybe a mistake for Romeo. I also think it's dangerous, Sweaty, to say, because I feel like part of it was like actual physical strength, but also she was saying like, hey, I wasn't the one who was slow on the puzzle. Like I had the puzzles. Dangerous to then vote out the other puzzle person. Seems like it might be on you in the future, and if it doesn't go well, that could also be bad, Sweaty. So I kind of agree with you that I don't think there's that much of a difference in terms of output, and I think Zach's probably feels like there's a world in which I think he could be perceived as more of a wild card player. Tori is very wild card in terms of like, hey everybody, I don't have an idol. Like, come on, so yeah, I don't know. I think kind of the wrong. I think I agree with you. Probably the wrong move.
Yeah. So I think I would go with something like a 3 for Zach. Like I don't want to go too low. Because I really, I think this was kind of a rough spot for him. But I do think, that mistake of telling Tori really came back to bite him a little bit. And, ultimately his relationship with Romeo just wasn't strong enough. And he hadn't made enough inroads with people like Rox, Drea, or Swati for them to really stand up for him there. So, that's going to be it for Zach. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think a 3 is, again, I don't, the idea of going like a 1 or 2, I feel like it just wasn't that bad. I also feel like, I think as we'll get to this tribe, I don't know that anybody is like super, super high. I feel like it's like anybody like, is playing an amazing game. Obviously we have not seen much from any of them. But yeah, I would not put Zach much lower. I think a 3 is perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, next on my list, I think would be Tori, considering
Yep.
she was the
Same.
other option to go. And I'd probably put her just above Zach at like a 4 here. I
Exactly
think,
what I had her at. Yep.
yeah, I feel like she, yeah, I like the intentionality in how she plays the game, but it just, I feel like it just doesn't come off naturally enough. Like I like intentionality, but it needs to feel natural, and I feel like Tori does not feel natural. And I think the results of that came off in the episode. And it seems like it was just by the fact that she was stronger than Zach that she was able to stay in here.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for Tori here. I feel like she does not give off like even when she's saying like I don't have an idol, it feels so much more defensive than it does like off like an offensive move to be like, hey, like you can trust me, like hey, come on, like it felt um that does protest too much that a little
Mhm.
bit like yeah, and so I feel like I don't know if she has uh the social skills. I feel like she and the danger will be to see if she can like rein in I feel like she feels like she's on the bottom, so she can rein in these like instincts to go really, really hard.
Mhm.
I think moving forward in this tribe, there is like so little wiggle room in these 6-person tribes, right? I think she could be okay if she could like find herself in a favorable swap position where like maybe she even has to like work with the people on this Ika tribe. But I think if they go back to tribal council, I really do worry for Tori. And I agree. I don't think it was much of what she did so much as she just seemed like a little bit better of an option to keep around.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think there was an implication that she threw Zach under the bus for telling her about the idol thing, and if that contributed towards Zach going instead of her, kudos. I like the
Yeah,
play, like, but as like a sort of desperation Hail Mary of like, oh, him instead of me. But the fact that you're in that position in the first place is not great.
yeah, I agree.
So. Next up on the list here for the Ika tribe, I think I would go with Rocks.
That's
Just
who I have.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, I just feel like with the content we were given, I like that he recognized that he was being like a little bossy, little
Yeah.
bossy B,
Yeah.
bossy R.
Yeah.
But he still couldn't seem to help himself,
Totally. Yes.
which is it's just not great.
His
And
name
even
also gets thrown around too, which is
yes,
it's he's only saved, if Tori's only saved because he's a little bit stronger than Zach. I feel like Roxroy gets saved because he's more physical than either of the two of them.
yeah.
And in another world, he's gone first. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also seemed like he was kind of the one that was really unwilling to budge on it being Zach over Tori. And that I don't know how much longer that's gonna like play for. In he might be good on this tribe, but like I don't know, based on how they're portraying him in the episodes, I don't know how far the social game is gonna go here for Rocks. But I do like him. I mean, I liked his segment about being a stay-at-home dad, and like
Yeah.
I'm kind of rooting for him to get back into the mix of things. But for now, I think ultimately, since he ends up okay, now I think I have to go with a 4 as well for Rocks. I just feel like no, you know what? I think I would go with a 5 because I think that ultimately he does decide the outcome of the vote. He ends up, having Swati and Romeo and Drea all on board. I think he is probably pretty safe on this tribe moving forward with Tori on the outs. So I think I'm okay. I'm okay with Rox's position, even though I do see some potential areas of concern.
Yeah, I had him as a 5 as well. I think that the self-awareness and yeah, the fact that he does basically decide that Zach's going to go leads me to believe that like yeah, while he had this like tough demeanor, they perhaps still could also see him as a leader of this tribe of sorts, or at least lets him have that image. Could he be a big juicy meat shield for some of these other people on the tribe moving forward? Which is like sounds not great. I mean, he's only getting a 5 here. You know, he's the meat shield. But like it's better than being on the outs, right? Like so yeah.
Yeah. All right. So next up, and now it starts to really get tricky, but I think just for lack of content, I would go Swati next. Are you in agreement?
I had Swati and Romeo basically the same. So yeah, I think easily. I think the lack of content argument makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to give both of them. In fact, I think I'm going to all 3 of the rest of them 6s. Just because, I just feel like Swati, I loved what she said about introducing herself as somebody from the Army National Guard. That she was like, people are going to want strength, and so I want this to be their impression of me, that I am strong. Especially as somebody that is as young as she is, giving that impression of strength right away. She wasn't even in the conversation of like weaker players, it seems.
And youngest person on this cast, right? I think at 19. And I think just for that reason alone, the fact that she's not seemingly a target, I was like, yeah, she's playing. That's great. That's you know, her name does not get thrown around. Seems like she's developing actual relationships with people, you know, actual bonds with people as well. That means they're not even seeing her as somebody who they should be voting out, and yet she's, you know, one of the younger people in the tribe. So yeah, I think it's I had her to 6 as well. Yeah,
there we go, fully in agreement so far.
I know it's pretty wild.
Next up, I did have Romeo, where obviously, I think losing Zach is a bit of a blow, and the fact that he wasn't able to switch it on to Tori, which I think is the right call ultimately, definitely is not great for Romeo. However, I am impressed with the fact that he is in there, you know, in a position, at least in the episode, where he is being active and making calls, and he was in a position to lose an ally, where it's like that's because he had made so many. Right? Like he had enough connections that he was able to lose one, and he still seems like he's in a pretty fine place, especially considering the fact that he is, you know, just as ripped as Zach. You know, like their Skinny Guys Alliance, people were looking at Zach. They weren't looking at Romeo, even though he sat out of the competition, I think. So I think that's good. I think, you know, part of my concern with Romeo is that he wouldn't be able to take losses very well. Because of what he talked about, like I hate being wrong and I hate not getting my way. But he didn't get his way here, and it seems like he's handling it fine. So one of my major concerns with Romeo already gone, and I'm hopeful for him moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was like it's my one knock on Romeo, that I feel like he let someone go who trusts him the most. It feels like out of it, but like that clearly must not be, you know, at least totally true. There must be other people who he feels like he can work with. He can, and so yeah, he had options here, and he chooses to let Zach go, who seemed to trust him, implicitly wanted to work with him very badly. So yeah, and he is, you know, in a conversation where they're saying we should get out somebody who's not great in the physical challenges, he is the one who sits out, and he's not in the conversation for that either. So yeah, I think. Yeah, it's pretty strong, and yeah, it's like the one knock I have. You can like turn the argument against it. That like, yeah, he didn't really need Zach. Yeah, I guess we'll see whether that's true or not. But yeah.
Well, that of course leaves Drea as the sort of top person on the tribe. I still would give her a 6 though overall, just because she did get in a little bit of hot water based on the Tori situation. And she is playing pretty, as she said, she's taken some risks, but I like the risks. I like that she has 2 advantages. I mean, technically she has 2 extra votes, but one of them is a lot worse than the other.
Yeah, one we're not sure even how she can activate it, but other than that, it's great.
She also has multiple connections with other tribes at this point. She has the initial advantage connection with Hai and Lindsay. And then she has the Advantage Island Prisoner's Dilemma connection with Marianne and
Jenny.
So I think that's all great. And on top of that, she seems like she's doing all right on her tribe. Like, who's going to come after Drea? She's very strong. So I like her position overall, and I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that she can really like solidify something, lock in. I feel like she could be a big player moving forward, but I'm going to be a little conservative for now and just give her a 6.
Yeah, that is my concern. I feel like there is a world in which she's the one driving everything, or at least is like letting Rox believe he is controlling everything, and she's sort of like puppet mastering him. Is like sort of the sense I got, just how fast she's willing to play, which is part of it. She just ended up, being the one to do leg 2 of the opening challenge, and also to be the one who I believe she wins at rock paper scissors, I think is how she ends up on Shipwheel Island. But I always think, in these in the Shipwheel games, if you can be the one to come away where somebody has protected their to like offer you up, there is a connection there where like you could say that in some way she owes Jenny, but Jenny might not even be around, and you walk away with the advantage. It's the best position you can come out of Shipwheel Island.
And she didn't
right?
even
And
she
so,
didn't need her vote. Like it wasn't a big
She did
deal
not.
even if she had lost her vote. So
No.
good
And so
on Andrea.
yeah, I think it's really strong. It's just she gets caught up in the Tori stuff, but and Tori sticks around is where I get a little bit worried for Drea. This is the thing where I think like, I don't think anybody here is it's hard to tell who is actually in the best power position. Like I think between the 3 people we've given a 6 to, I think we could come out of next week's episode seeing how they sort of ended up dictating where the tribe goes next, which might just be to get rid of Tori. But I don't see who's totally control. So I agree with ranking Drea at a 6. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on then to the Vati tribe, because they, I think, came in 2nd place in the immunity challenge. And we are going to see just a little bit of the strategy from their tribe, at least. I feel like the Taku tribe, we saw the least amount of strategy from. So we'll save them for last.
Sure.
So Vati consists of Chanel, Daniel, Hai, Jenny, Lydia, and Mike. And
Right.
I mean, I really have no idea how to rank them already, because we saw very little strategic content from a lot of these players. Where would you go for the bottom?
I have 2 tops, and then the other 4 I'm like I don't know. I feel like we saw the least from Chanel. I feel like
I know. I wanted more Chanel. What's up with that? My fast walker needs more action.
Yeah, I feel like, if I'm like sort of, there's really nothing. At least everybody else got something.
So I think the one time we saw Chanel, she was kind of giving us the layout of the tribe, right? Which was that she saw that Lydia and Hai had kind of paired up, and that Jenny and Mike had paired up a little bit, and so that she ends up with a pair with Daniel, and so we saw them talking, and that makes sense as a pair because they're both huge fans of the show. So if this is a tribe of 3 pairs, I really don't know like where that's gonna go. It seems as though the Chanel Daniel pair is more likely to be able to hook up with the Hai and Lydia pair to form the core of this tribe, which would put Mike and Jenny on the outs. But who knows? We did see, I will say, I watched Next Time On, and we did see somebody say something about voting Mike out.
Yeah, I know.
But those are not trustworthy, and I don't know if they can be canon in the Stockwatch.
I know. I was talking about I was going to mention on the Ika tribe that like I'm pretty sure it's Tori and Sawyer. Like we got to get rid of Drea. But I'm like, well, that's a red herring. So Drea's going to be fine.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I don't put any stock into the preview. Yeah.
I think for me though, I will like just because for lack of other information, I'm going to make the guess that those 2 younger pairs will stick together and form the power of the tribe, which would put Mike and Jenny on the outs. So my rankings will probably be somewhat based on that.
I think it's interesting because I feel like between the 2 pairs, I do feel like Hai and Lydia are the center pair in my mind, that like they could either go with Mike and Jenny or they could go with Chanel and Daniel, and that will decide how a vote, if they go to tribal council, turns out. mostly because I think Hai got the advantage, and that's just like, I don't know. It just feels to me he feels the most like the center piece there. But I feel like between those other two pairs, Jenny got a lot this episode, and
That's
Daniel
true.
got a lot this episode. So I can't. It's not like I could. If it was like Jenny and Daniel were the pair, I'd be like, well, like they're actually the center of the alliance, you know. But it's almost like one person from all of those pairs.
Yeah,
got
I
much
wonder
more
if
content than the other person.
I wonder if something else to consider is again strength. Where like again you might
Right.
assume like the younger pairs would stick together over the older ones, but Jenny is seen to be strong in puzzles. Mike is their theoretically strongest guy, and Daniel has dislocated his shoulder. We saw that it was still causing him some trouble in the challenge, and that could maybe shift the power back over to that older pair away
True.
from Chanel and Daniel if that is the case. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I think it's so hard to guess where this might go, and we saw so little.
So would you actually
but
say is Lydia? Well, no, it's Daniel. I don't know. Is
I
Lydia
think
actually the lowest? I don't know.
I think I have to put Daniel lowest because
Okay,
he
fair.
got hurt. I think that's where it has to go. I think Daniel getting his shoulder dislocated is going to knock him from a 5 to a 4, and for that reason, you know, he's gonna, because I think that's gonna give him some. I mean, I know it got better, but then I did see in the immunity challenge, it seemed like it was hurting again.
Well,
And if
I
they
did
ever go
wonder
to
whether
tribal,
he's
I'm
just not
concerned.
trying. He's not trying to. He can't put like if he
That's
does
true.
it
He might be
again,
careful.
right?
Yeah.
So he might just only be lifting with like one. You know, he was. I think there's one point where he's saying like, I can't carry the chest. I can carry this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't think he's injured at the moment. I do think it's like he's protecting his shoulder, which. Is that just as bad? It feels just as bad. Right?
Yeah,
Because
like the perception is still
what's the
there.
difference?
Like if you
Yeah.
can't use it to its maximum potential, then are you a hindrance to us? It could be a thing.
Once upon a
So
time, Tyson Apostle.
true.
You know, yeah.
So you know, I mean, it's certainly not a fair rating to drop him because he got his shoulder dislocated, but for lack of anything else, I think I'm gonna do that. Although I do think that he seems perfectly capable of doing well in the game despite that. So this could be completely off, but you know, for just so I'm not giving everyone 5s, I'll drop him 1 for the arm.
Now I had him at 4, but we could drop him to 4. I think the piece that was like booing it up for me a little bit is like the segment he gets, which is dangerous to play this game because Jackson got a great segment and Jackson goes home, right? Like the segment could be in here because Daniel's not long for the game, you know,
And he needs to get his story out. Yeah.
needs to get the story in before he's actually gone. So tricky to play. You got the heartwarming story. I'm really glad it was in there. If that, you know, it could go either way, that like this person is going to go on a run. So we're going to highlight them early, or really bad news for Daniel. So
Yeah. So what was your number for Daniel?
I had him at 5. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So then above Daniel, I think I would put man, I guess Chanel, which hurts me because I want more Chanel. She's my number 1 pick. But I just feel like we got very little content from her. I think a neutral 5 is all I can go for there. For now, I would love to see this skyrocket, but I just that we saw nothing. We saw very little from Chanel, which is a huge disappointment to me. But we'll see where that goes.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, like I even forgot that she's the one who like outlines all the pairs, you know. It's yeah, that's not great. Although, you know, just gets a confessional. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm like,
I mean, her one confessional was good and it was strategic. You know,
Yeah.
that gives me some hope. But
Yeah.
in terms of game, I just don't know where things stand right now. So I have to keep it neutral. And that's really going to be the story for this tribe in general. However, I do think there's some reason to give some people a little bit higher of a rating just based on the episode. Lydia, I think I'm also going to go with a 5, and I would put Lydia next, just for, again, lack of content. Didn't really see much from her. She seems like she's with Hai, which I think is great, but I don't know where things go from there.
yeah, the only reason I would bump up her score is because she's allied with Hai, who has an advantage, and it's like that's not really on her, right?
And it's not a very good one.
And it's not a great one. Yeah, actually, it's more complicated if Lydia is involved.
Yeah,
it's like it'd be easier if you didn't know. So yeah, I'm like total middle of the road. At least she has. I think it's the same with Chanel. At least they have somebody, right? Like
yes.
The worst thing in the small tribes is to just feel like you're totally alone. You're totally isolated. Because you're so quickly on the out. So they all have somebody is a positive.
Yeah. That's the other thing about it. It's like there's no clear bottom or top to this tribe. It seems like it's all equal playing field. So for that reason, I do think that the people that stood out a little bit more were Hai, Mike, and Jenny. And again, I'm going to ignore the next time on. So so the fact that I'm going to put Mike a little higher is despite the fact that in the next time on they say they want to come from Mike. But I think I would go Jenny next. And I'd give Jenny a 6. And the reason for that is that I like that Jenny seems smart and that she was able to figure out the triangle thing, and that's great. She also seemed to be very good at the puzzle. But in terms of, game advantages that don't just benefit the tribe, but benefit her specifically, I see less of that, right? That she's maybe paired up with Mike, as far as we know, but I didn't really hear from her on like who she's vibing, who she feels she's vibing with, who she's like where she wants to go in the game. I just know that she's smart and she's good at puzzles, which is great, and it's going to give her a 6. But in terms of like strategic content, Hai has an advantage. And I heard from Mike that he was like, Mike did something strategically that I thought was good. And so that's kind of the bar at this point for me.
Yeah. The one thing I would say, I said earlier about Shipwheel Island, so Jenny goes to Shipwheel Island, is the only person to protect her vote, which I think is like, it's not exactly the position you want to be in when you come back from Shipwheel Island. It is better than not having your vote. And so
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not the worst thing that could happen. And I do think the problem is with like the Shipwheel Island of it all is that the connections you formed from making this move of like, I'm the one who protected my vote so that you could have it. You don't return with those people. Like I was thinking through the episode, like last season, we had these people who like risked their vote and then came back and were like, hey, I risked my vote. Now we have like an extra vote. Feels like those people got targeted because they had an advantage, right? There's this target on your back. And so like I was debating, like, is it better if to kind of be able to like figure out how to play it? You are setting other people up and you're developing a relationship that you could, and you're not developing a relationship. You're like setting something up that you could use to develop a relationship down the line, which isn't a bad thing, but you just kind of come back with nothing. And I also think the one thing that like I do worry a smidge is when she figures out the triangle puzzle and she's like, wow, I think like nobody else here is good at puzzles. I feel like this little bit of like, it might not be like the sass. It's in a confessional. It's not in front of people. It doesn't say this to anybody, but there's a little bit of like, does she think everybody else is dumb? And will that be a detriment to her as well? So I almost like the Shipwheel Island thing. I'm like, oh, I'll bump you up a little bit. And then I'm going to bump you down a little. Like, I feel like they kind of even out. So I'm totally cool with the 6 for Jenny. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about the Shipwheel Island thing. And maybe I think that would probably bump her up because that is something tangible. Not number wise, but above Mike probably for me. Again, very little to go off of here, but
sure.
I'm also going to give Mike a 6. But remembering the Shipwheel thing, I would put him below Jenny. The thing that I liked that Mike did was the savvy sweat thing.
Right.
Him immediately recognizing like this is going to fall on me, and I don't want to be alone for hours while everybody's bonding. So I'm going to get ahead of this and make sure that we all agree that we're not going to do that.
Hey, the pot's heavy. The pot's pretty heavy.
Oh, the pot's real heavy, guys. I don't know about this.
I don't know.
I thought that was very savvy of him.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. I think that that's a small thing that was enough to go, okay, slightly better than average then in terms of where I've got you for this episode. we'll see where things go from here. But for me, yeah, that gives him a 6.
And so I had him at a 5 in the same way that you forgot about the Ship Island thing. I totally forgot about the savvy thing. And it shows that he is, he's not here to just be brawn completely, you know? And I also think that is, something in his favor as well. If the challenges are what they appear to be from what we've seen thus far, they are going to be hard. And Mike does feel like somebody who, could be somebody who makes it to the merge on the back of, we can't vote him out.
Yeah.
We're just going to end up back at tribal council again. So I think that's actually a notch in his belt. So I did have him a 5, but I might bump him up to a 6 for the savvy and the fact that, he's so, we talked about this earlier, he's so clearly the person who's going to have to do this sweaty challenge. It's like, it has to be Mike. There's no other choice. The retired firefighter who's 58 years old. It's got to be him. Yeah.
Got to be him. And that means that High is going to be at the top of this tribe for me. And I assume for you?
Yes.
Still have to only go with a 6, though. I just haven't seen enough from him to know if it warrants going up to the 7. He does have the advantage, but it's not a very good advantage. He seems like he's got potential, but I thought he had potential preseason. Like, it's not like there's a huge difference there.
Know. Yeah, that's I'm always doing the camp of it. It's like every draft I get it, I'm like, I'm thinking High. Yeah. So I might be too high on him with my 7 score.
I think that's fair. I think it's okay to go there.
It's very very silly. But if he actually did get out of covering himself in blood, I think that's
You know what? I'm going to make this canon. The reason I'm not going to a 7 is because he put blood all over his chest. And I'm like, what are you thinking, High?
I think that's pretty fair. That's a good call. Yeah. It covers himself in blood. And somehow everyone is totally fine with it. So, yeah.
All right. So that is the Vati tribe. I'm hoping that the next time we talk about the Vati tribe, I'm talking about Chanel's got a 10 all across the board.
Yeah.
But for now, that's where we are. And then we'll finally talk about the Taku tribe. I don't think it's fair to rate Jackson at all.
Totally
he
agree.
Didn't get to play the game at all. So we will skip over Jackson. But the rest of the Taku tribe is Jonathan, Lindsay, Mariah, Marianne, and Omar. And I feel like this is the tribe we saw the least from. So this will be even wilder.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Because I almost had I think when I was looking at them, I think we saw the least of Lindsay. She got the advantage again, not a great advantage, but she got an advantage. I feel like it's the disparity of attention on this tribe is the thing that's glaring of the Orange Tribe might have been on TV a lot, but it was only for Marianne, a Jackson segment and Jackson leaving. Marianne I think standout fan favorite on Twitter, an infection personality. I love the line of I'm here, I'm a weirdo, you can be a weirdo too. It's great. And I feel like I'm not saying it's at the expense of everybody else, but certainly if there's only so much time to air green or orange tribe content, it certainly went to Marianne.
Yeah. I think that in terms of who I would place at the bottom, because I really if we're going to try and figure out the layout of this tribe, I really have no idea. I would assume that Jonathan is safe until a swapper emerge.
I would agree.
Lock safe. So, for that reason, maybe we can go from the top to the bottom on this one. For that reason, I'd probably put him at the top, just for lack of other knowledge. Just he should be the safest. And for that reason, I'll give him a 6. Just physically, this guy is a beast. He's dragging boats across the water. They're not going to want this. They're not, unless he shows up in episode 2 and he's the worst person ever. He should be good.
Yeah. I mean, it's Mike times 1,000, not he the fittest guy in his tribe. He's also much younger. So it's I think he's pretty safe to be hanging around throughout this late pre-merge. I worry about Jonathan, but but not for the next 3-4 weeks. I think he's a safe bet to continue to be on this show.
Yeah. And then maybe I'll throw Lindsay in next because she has the advantage.
I would put Marianne has a.
You're right. I
advantage.
think Marianne. You're right. Marianne also got the advantage. I would definitely put Marianne next because I think that she not only did she get more content, which I'm trying not to factor in too much, but like she also just seems so much more likable and personable and like I mean I don't think we've seen enough from Lindsay to know how likable and personable she is, but clearly the cameras love Marianne, and that's got to say something. So, I think Marianne at a 6 up there, and I'd also throw Lindsay in with a 6 just because they have advantages. But I put Marianne next, and then Lindsay.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I'm totally with you. A big shout out to the Canadian women going to Shipwell Island, Marianne and Drea. Marianne just outside of Toronto. So I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm really disappointed I didn't get to draft Marianne in my draft." I said, "Don't worry, on the returning season, you can draft Marianne." I do not feel like she has a winner. Maybe, who knows? But I feel like she's going to play hard. She's very fun. I don't know if she has the best game in her, but she'll be fun to watch along the way. And she does have an advantage. She chose to risk her vote, so she chose, something. So yeah. And I would agree with Lindsay as well. Really, we don't get much after that initial vote. She is the most tepid about doing it as well. Yeah. Which there's a world in which that's a good thing, right? That she's like, I'm betraying my tribe very early on. But I also wonder, she's so quickly set, like she's the one voicing that doubt, right? The other two are so quickly like, no, we got to do it. Let's do it. Come on, let's do it, which is risky as well. But Lindsay to be voicing that doubt, I think could also be a trouble if any of those three, they're like, we have to use this thing together. She's the one who's like, I don't know. So again, we're going off so little, but that's my one slight about Lindsay.
I think that's fair. I think also, though, another thing to consider is that she is also pretty physical.
Yes.
And so that could keep her safe as well. Then I would probably go Omar at a 5. Just I feel like they're shying away from the zombie chicken army that he's got brewing, and so they don't want to show it too much for whatever reason, but. I did like his what was it, ostrich shirt.
Yes, it's a great shirt. Yeah. This is very he and Marianne from the cities they're from, and he's Omar is another Canadian. There's a lot of Canadians in the season. Those towns are very close together. So not that I think that they know each other, but the fact that they are from this like very similar
I assume most Canadians know each other. That's what usually happens on Big Brother Canada.
That's true. That is very true. Every international season, they always end up accidentally casting 2 people who know each other. Like, can you figure this out by now? But I just feel like that it seems here, but it is this connection. Like there is this like thing that I feel like we don't see it on the show, but could be a thing. Yeah,
I think that's valid for sure. What number were you from?
Yeah, I had him at a 5. There's like nothing. Yeah. He is one of the 3 to stay and do the puzzle, right? I believe it's Omar, Marianne, and Mariah. I believe complete the puzzle. And so that I feel like that's a check in his box that he's one of the teams that helps them make sure that they get the advantages early on. The supplies.
So Mariah, I feel like I remember Mariah, and this is the reason I'm having her at the bottom. She was not performing well in the first challenge, right?
Yes, she is on the puzzle, and they are the first tribe on the beach.
Yeah,
and they lose the challenge.
Right.
So I had this as a reason why it's not great. I think that like it's the first challenge. If they went on a run, do you ever remember the first? Do you remember that she didn't do well in the first challenge? I don't know, but like again, so little to go on.
Well, it's her first impression is that she loses the challenge for the tribe, right? Like that's not great.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So for that reason, I would
dominate the actual physical.
Yeah.
Like they're the only they do it so much quicker than anybody else, and they do not win the challenge. They don't comment on it, so we don't see the aftermath of that, but it definitely is a knock against Mariah.
Yeah. So for lack of anything else, I think that would drop her down to a 4 and put her at the bottom of the tribe for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So there you go. We did it.
We did it.
Stockwatch
Nope.
for Survivor, week 1.
You don't have anybody above a 6.
No, I went. It's really from a 3 to a 6 is the entire layout, which I don't remember how it went for the first week last season, but I think that's fair. Like even when this does turn into a game, like these ratings wouldn't impact anybody yet. These would just be the base starting ratings, and so
Makes total sense.
you know, by next week, I think the ratings will start to be a little more. That's why I said at the start, like the rankings of like who we think is better or worse on the tribe, I think is going to be a little more interesting than the ratings for this particular week, just because there's so little to go off of. But what's interesting is how things will change for next week. Who will go up, who will go down as we learn more about the players and the tribes.
Yes. It's, I think a lot of people have made this comment, and it's not a hot take. It's a great cast. It's really good. Anybody who were like ranking low, it's because we didn't see a lot of them, more so than it's like, even the person who gets voted out, we're like, I don't feel like they did a lot wrong, so it feels like an excellent group of people who not only like want to play and play hard, like them being in the getting the advantage twist, they all have to decide together. It's like, this is short, come on, let's do it, we're gonna go. Feels like they want to play with very interesting people and personalities. So yeah, exciting
Stuff. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining me here on our what would you do, this double feature. Big Brother Canada and Survivor.
Yeah, I cover movies over. Yeah, a double feature. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
Have you ever been to a double feature?
Do you know what? I watched, I went to a drive-in when we were really young. We did the double feature. Sometimes I do the double feature like on my own. I'll be like, oh, I can catch these 2 movies back to back. But the first like double feature we went at a drive-in, I watched what's the Dana Carvey mystery where he's like in disguise, Master of Disguise. And then it was a surfing movie. I think it was like I don't even Blue Crush or something. I think it's the worst double feature of all time. I think as a young child. Yeah.
So I think I've been to 2 double features in my life. And one of them was The Seven Samurai and Rashomon.
Okay.
Which that was great. The other one was Harry Potter. Don't remember which one.
One of them.
Pearl Harbor.
Okay. Why those? There's a theme. Theme.
Yeah, clearly, I two great double features that I went. That was a drive-in, the Harry Potter and Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, so mine was The Master of Disguise and Blue Crush. This was in 2002. I went to this movie. It's Kate Bosworth. I don't remember anything about the movie, either because I chose to forget or because I don't really remember.
Well, interestingly, I remember Pearl Harbor a lot more than I do the Harry Potter movie.
Yeah, fair enough.
But thank you so much. Anything else from Survivor that we want to bring up before we end this?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah.
All right. What a lean podcast this was as well. We're really cleaning up here. Hopefully you all enjoyed this format of the Survivor podcast. I think this was fun. I like sort of this format. So
you can get through so much of the story through individual stories,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got for you. Of course, if you are interested in hearing the Taran show, I've got a Survivor guest coming up next week. Tyson, speaking of dislocated shoulders,
yeah, that's right,
will be joining me for the Taran show next week. So make sure you tune in for that. Go and subscribe to the Taran show feed on wherever you get your podcasts, and you can tune in for the Tyson Taran show. There are plenty of other Survivor guests, or at least a few other Survivor guests that I've done in the past. If you want to go through the archives, as well as some other very interesting guests that I've talked to throughout my time on the Taran show. You can also check out all of our Big Brother Canada coverage. Grace, Josh, and I are talking about Raised by Wolves this season over on HBO Max. So check out that podcast over on Post Show Recaps. And that's find me on Twitch if you have not already. I watch these episodes live with all of you. It's so much fun to watch it with a big group of people. We all get to react to things as they're happening. It's so much more fun to watch the episodes that way. So come on by the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, and find all of that stuff. Grace, what do you got going on?
Lots of stuff here on Rob as a podcast, doing sports coverage. We relaunched the show with a bit of a new format. We called the Off Speed Podcast, where we will look into different worlds of sport. This week we are previewing March Madness. So I have a guest covering the women's tournament and a guest covering the men's tournament, and play some games along the way. Over on post-show recaps, in addition to Raised by Wolves covering, we wrapped up our Euphoria coverage this week. Bryce Isaiah came on for our feedback recap show with Amon and I. Winning Time, the new HBO show covering the Los Angeles Lakers, doing weekly movie coverage over there, and yeah, lots more. So if you're interested in anything I'm doing, you can check it out. I'm on Twitter at Hi From Grace.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here. Make sure you tune in next week for the Survivor Stockwatch, where we will bring you all the smarts.
Now comes the smarts.
And we will see you next time.